veteran of the Catholic camera with Mike Revich manning it, and Orto, the Organisation Radio Télévision Olympique, the official Canadian television organization, said that our camera was in our shot, although this position was specifically approved before the games began, and they sent the officers down and said that if we would move the camera, they would move it for us. So we've been having problems like that up here. So what you're looking at is the reason that the coverage apparently will not be quite as tight on the faces of the athletes and some of the American winners when they are coming into the stadium. Too bad, but that's our camera being moved away.
Phone your technical producer.
Somebody's saying phone your technical producer. Well, I guess Brune Arledge and Chuck Howard have phoned everybody they could, but Orto is immovable in this organization. So you 80 million down there won't get quite the pictures you've been getting up till now, exclusively from ABC. Look at the American flags in the stands. The big sport waiting for the ceremony to begin, by the way, is the throwing of paper airplanes. That's what all those little UFOs are going back and forth. That corner of the stadium, by the way, also booed the officials when our camera was removed. So, Frank, we're still here anyway.
ABC, number one, but apparently our cameraman not number one. Mike down there doing the very best he could with what he had to work with, and he is going to be exited, I guess, along with his camera. We would have liked to have had that camera in there, as Jim explained, to show you close-ups, not only of our own athletes parading in the closing ceremonies, but those of other countries. But apparently that is not to be. Well, there are a lot of people, I guess, watching ABC tonight, and as the audience begins to pick up, and of course there are a lot of people in Canada who are watching our ABC stations all along the coast, and we wish you to have the opportunity to bring them a little closer touch, and that's all we were trying to do. We were not trying to violate anything we shouldn't have done, but we had a little bit of a problem there, and I'm sure it'll get worked out, and we'll bring you the very best coverage that we can. Everything that we have done here has been approved ahead of time, and, well, maybe the message just didn't quite get down to the floor of the stadium. Well, we are going to be returning to Jim McKay very shortly. As a matter of fact, we're going to go right out there right now to the Olympic Village, and here he is, Jim McKay.
Okay, Frank, thank you again. It was supposed to start at 9 o'clock. I have it just 9 o'clock now. So at any moment, we should be having the entrance of the standard bearers, preceded by Canadian Indian group. I don't want to tip everything in advance, but that much we can tell you. Also that later on tonight, you're going to be seeing live satellite pictures as part of these ceremonies from the Soviet Union. Some of the lights have been turned out around the rim of the stadium. There is Prime Minister Pierre-Elliott Trudeau. Looks like he's having a good time already of Canada. Maybe he can get our camera back for us. And the Canadian flag. That's is it New Zealand or Australia? I always get confused, and I apologize to everybody from Australia and New Zealand. The paper airplane sport still goes on, and the Olympic flame burned. Remember that it once went out this week, and a workman patriotically climbed up and lit it with a cigarette lighter and a piece of paper. And then when that word flashed to the officials, they said, my goodness, that's an undignified way to do it. So they came out with a motorcycle escort, probably the same one we had tonight, and rekindled it officially with a taper and kerosene and everything from the original flame that was born in the stadium. It was rekindled by the director of pyrotechnics of the Olympic Flame program. There's no way of telling what the mood of this ceremony is going to be. You never know. At Grenoble in France, we had expected one that would have a Gallic beauty and warmth to it, and it, quite frankly, didn't turn out that way. It was a bit austere. Mexico City was great. These are the special little lights that have been given to everybody coming into the stadium tonight, and you just kind of twist them, I believe, and they light up. They're calling them the lights of the future, and at a given point in the ceremonies, that's Mayor Drapeau talking to Prime Minister Trudeau, by the way, given point in the ceremonies, all these lights will be turned on by the people in the stadiums in darkness, and it's a very dramatic point in the ceremonies. You'll see that when it happens. Now, coming onto the field, all dressed in white, are young women aged 12 to 16 from 6 Catholic high schools in Montreal, one of them an English-speaking high school, the other 5 all French. They're not actually dance students, so the choreographer, Hugo Dupont, selected very simple and flowing movements for them that you'll see in a minute or two. Scapeau, the man who did the choreography, directs the Ballet Moderne de Quebec Ballet Academy. He also has a strong background in gymnastics so that the Olympic feeling will be there. Music in the background is still moving. That sounds a little like Maynard Ferguson, but I'm not sure that is. Maynard is later going to play for the extinction of the Olympic flame. After these young women get into the stadium, they're going to be illuminated by spotlights and then go into their choreographic movements. They were here on opening day, as a matter of fact. Gee, that seems a long time ago. Remember when we were watching the delegations to see which of the African nations were coming in and which weren't? A day of high confusion, but it was a day of beauty also. Remember, it was a surprise when Egypt didn't come in. They stayed, competed a little bit, eventually went home. We were waiting for the Mongolians to come in their great, colorful, ancient dress of the Genghis Khan times, and instead they came in business suits, looked like they were straight from Madison Avenue. We remember that the Americans got one of the greatest ovations at the opening ceremonies. We were wondering, because of the conflict that had occurred between American and Canadian governments over the Taiwanese incident before. And we had heard that in many quarters up here, Americans were not all that well liked. Well, the biggest ovation of the day at the opening, aside from the one for the home team, was for the United States. There's no question of that. Now the tom-toms beginning to play are part of the Indian motif that will mark the first part of the ceremony. All of the music, as the opening ceremony's music was arranged by a man named Victor Vogel. He prefers to be called Vic, actually. He's a kind of relaxed jazz musician who plays here in Montreal, plays a number of instruments, is a composer himself, and he wrote all the music for these musicians. There he is in the white shirt there, standing in front of the orchestra, Vic Vogel, but he drew all of the music from the compositions of a man named André Mathieu. André Mathieu was a citizen of Quebec. He was a child prodigy. Some of the music that you'll hear tonight was written when he was 8 years old. He eventually died at age 39. At age 13, he played a concert in Carnegie Hall of his own music with the New York Philharmonic. That gentleman is not a part of the ceremony. The young women here are. There are a lot more of these girls in white than there were at the opening ceremony. Stadium completely full now. A lot of people came between 20 minutes to 9 and 9. I was wondering if there might be empty seats, but I don't see them now. The turf, as you see, torn up by the equestrian event. However, that's no problem, although this is sod that just went down before the games. It's going to be torn up. There's an Orto film camera out where our camera used to be, and they'll be able to process that in a couple of days and show it on television. The turf being torn up, as I said, doesn't matter because they're going to tear it up anyway and put down AstroTurf, or some sort of artificial turf. I'm not sure that's the brand name. Apparently the reason being that it's difficult to grow turf inside this arena because it only has that one oval hole in the roof that you're seeing now from the high crane camera outside. That crane is placed, remember, on the base of what in time will be the mast that looms over the stadium 5 feet high, and from which, when it rains, will come down a huge umbrella-like thing that will close over that hole when the Montreal Expos want to play baseball in the rain. In fact, the Montreal Alouettes of the Canadian Football League are supposed to have several games played here this fall as soon as the artificial turf is down. The applause for the announcement, I believe, that the ceremonies are about to begin. It won't take a great deal of time. It'll last about an hour, but it'll be jam-packed.
Olympics are part of history. Celebrating the Olympic Games is reclaiming history. May these words
None of us will.
of this 21st Olympiad,
This is the official
which was
announcement
made
to the
possible
crowd.
through the cooperation of Canada, of the government of Quebec, and of the city of Montreal.
Okay, the crowd has been welcomed. There's the Olympic flag that not too long from now will be ceremonially lowered and carried from the stadium, and the flame that will be extinguished. There is the royal booth. Now, according to the list we got, neither Prince Philip nor Princess Anne would be in there. You never know, however, about these things. And for security reasons, they might not have said so. Lord Callanan, of course, will be there. There is the man in the glasses. Well, he's out of your picture now, not this man. Here's Lord Callanan, the president of the International Olympic Committee, who will be formally closing the games. He's had a stormy reign so far since he took over from the late Avery Brundage. And I think this is a night when we should mention again the name of Avery Brundage. He had many, many critics. He was a man with faults. He, however, was dedicated to the Olympic Games in the spirit of amateurism. These are the first summer games over which he did not preside in many years. President of the IOC he was from 1952 to 72 in Munich. So Lord Callanan is ensconced in his box, as is Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the Prime Minister. You saw him. Roger Rousseau, the President of the Organizing Committee here, COJO. Robert Bourassa, the Prime Minister of Quebec, is also here. And Mayor Drapeau, of course, the man who got these games for Montreal and has suffered a lot of controversy since then. But the games not only started, but soon they will be concluded. The fanfare with which we're now familiar. Series of movements and come together to form the 5 Olympic rings. And ridiculously, we have a streaker in the middle of it. Stark naked man. Absurd. Thought that kind of childish behavior had ended about 5 years ago. Well, let's be charitable and say that the athletes in the ancient games performed naked. His grandchildren proudly that he ran around stark naked in front of 72,000 people. He's in that right circle. Having removed our camera, they have finally gone after this guy. Finally got a good one. Bruce Jenner's wife almost was held up the field, but the streaker made it. And after, I would say, about a minute, they saw him. It's a good thing he wasn't something more dangerous. Now let's get back to what we expect to be a beautiful ceremony. What these 12 to 16-year-old girls needed at the moment of their lives. Isn't this beautiful? They turn their capes and we see the colors of the Olympic ring. This music is called Danse Sauvage. Believe it or not, this was written by André Mathieu when he was 8 years old. The same year he wrote his own funeral march, which was performed at his funeral 31 years later. Now the spotlights, as you see, are playing all around the stadium. Scheduled to enter now are a group of Indians, Canadian Indians, led by chiefs of 4 tribes. Andrew DeLisa, president of the Mohawks. Mike McKenzie, the chief of the Algonquins. Aurélien Gill of the Montagnais. And interestingly, the name of the next Indian chief is Max Gross Louis of the Huron tribe. All of the other Indians were chosen from the Association of Quebec Indians. Mainly represent 7 tribes altogether: Hurons, Mohawk, Cree, Attahamics, Micmacs, Algonquins, and Montagnais. We're told that this is the first time in more than 200 years that all the Indian nations have gathered as they are here in Canada. Now, also with them, these young women are members of the Fédération de Danse de Quebec. The men in front are actually chiefs of Indian tribes. They are there, of course, as the first residents of North America. And here come the placards of all the nations who are here. Not the 120 that have been expected at one point, but just over 90. You're going to hear more and more of this marvelous music of André Mathieu all through the ceremonies. Remember from the opening, well, these are different themes for the most part. Bearers of all the countries. Remember, the athletes came in ahead of time, massed at the end of the stadium. Just the flag bearers. Now, there's the American flag. Willie Davenport is scheduled to carry the American flag. I can't see yet whether it is Willie or not. A great honor, if so. Willie, partially hidden there. Yes, that's Willie. At age 33, he won a bronze medal in the high hurdles in his 4th Olympic Games. Most appropriate for Willie to carry the flag tonight. There he is. Former gold medalist and a bronze medalist this time. Finishing first of all the Americans. And now other athletes coming in. They are just 6 athletes from each nation that desired to send them as representatives of the others gathered at the end of the field. Another paper airplane went into the crowd. This would have been where we would have been getting the tight shots from our camera. We're trying to zoom in as best we can, though, with another one of our cameras. There we go. We worked it out for the most part. I don't mean me. More Indians at the back of the parade. Just the opening moments of the closing ceremonies here in Montreal. In white are the Soviet athletes, just went by. Now the Indians bringing up the rear of this opening parade. In the center of the field, remember, the 200 girls and more in the Olympic ring colors are still forming those 5 circles. There's a New Zealander. Now Japan. New Zealander there. This is just the beginning of the colors you're going to see, too. Remember the opening ceremonies? Whoever is in charge of coordinating all the colors here has done a marvelous job. There's Johnny Neighbor. John Neighbor with his fantastic multiple gold medal performance here in these Olympic Games. He's enjoying it, huh? 4 gold medals and 1 silver for John Neighbor. Shirley Babishov was right next to him. Any of the athletes who didn't come tonight are going to miss something to remember. John Neighbor taking a picture of the crowd. It's been the other way around all through the games. And Shirley right next to him with the long blonde hair laughing. Remember, they're not coming in by nation. They just are supposed to come in loose formation, athletes of the world together. Shirley Babashoff won 4 silver, remember, but finally got her gold for these Olympics in the last race, that 4 by 100 meter freestyle relay. A couple of Californians way up north. The weather, as Frank I'm sure told you, is marvelous. It couldn't be better tonight. Many of the flags you saw out there have been honored in these games because there have been medals for more countries, it seems to me, than I can ever remember before. Ivory Coast placard you see there and their flag, one of the 2 African nations that remain. This is just the entrance. The ceremonies themselves will begin in a minute.
The making of Taster's Choice. Take the best ground roast fresh perk coffee you know how to make. Then freeze it to lock in all that fresh perk flavor. When you remove the ice, you'll have rich chunks of freeze-dried coffee that look and smell like ground roast and taste fresh perked. You'll have freeze-dried Taster's Choice, regular or green label decaffeinated. Both taste fresh perked because both start fresh perked.
Sears announces the Summer Drummer Hardware Sale. Save 16 to 47% now on Sears tools. Tools like our best Craftsman 10-inch radial saw, or this 2-horsepower circular saw. There's a tool cabinet, a 60-piece mechanics tool set. And $4.99 will get you a choice of many other tools. So look for the drum and save on Sears tools that have earned the right to wear the name Craftsman.
Sears, where America shops.
We're back again at the closing ceremonies for the games of the 21st Olympiad. Jim McKay reporting, and look at Willie Davenport carrying the flag of the United States in his 4th Olympics. Aged 33. Certainly won't be in the Olympics again. This is the moment of honor that he is, as we said, well-deserved. I can't remember a sprinter or a hurdler who accomplished anything like that at his age. Willie, who works for the mayor's office in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, works with young people. There's John Neighbor again. That little, I don't know what you call it, a skull cap or something, he put on after every race here. Seems to be his good luck beanie. Now the Indians, marching as the head of an arrow, are bringing in, I believe, some teepees we're going to put up. We're going to have a little encampment here. Cheers coming from different parts of the stadium as particular athletes pass that part. There's the representative, the flag bearer of the Ivory Coast. Senegal and Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire stayed. The flag bearer was Jacques Aye, A-Y-E, a javelin thrower. All of this preliminaries to the taking down of the flag, the extinction of the flame, and greetings from Moscow, the scene of the next Olympics. Pays-Bas there, P-A-Y-S-B-A-S, is the Netherlands in French. All of the placards in French because that's the official language now of the province of Quebec, so decreed by their legislature some months ago. There's Annegret Richter. Annegret, who won the 100-meter for women, silver in the 200. One of the great athletes of these games. The teepees begin to rise. It's not going to take very long. Watch the way they do it. Hold them up with guy ropes. It's a beautiful scene they're making here. Watch it when they open them up, much like umbrellas. Each one color keyed to the color of the Olympic ring in which they're being erected. One in blue, as you see, the one in black and white for the black ring. Green here. Of applause from the crowd. There are tens of thousands of flash bulbs going off everywhere. Seems like everybody brought a camera. I've always been told that a flash bulb doesn't do anything from further than 20 feet away, so there may be a lot of wasted power there. The flag of every nation in the Olympic movement contains at least one of the colors that you see on the field now. Rings themselves symbolizing the continents of the world. There's the flag of the home country, Canada, which, sad to say, did not win a gold medal. It's the first time in Olympic history that the host nation has not won at least one gold, but they did win more medals than since 32. There's Gaston Rollins, the veteran Belgian distance runner, ran in the marathon, and we saw him briefly in the streets of Montreal yesterday during our live coverage. He was the 1964 Olympic steeplechase champion 12 years ago, back running now as a marathoner. The Tom-Tom Sis has to be from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, I believe. Kamil Al-Abbasi, a 400-meter hurdles man. Now the other Indians are coming in inside the rings with the athletes. Some of them, I believe, yeah, the ones that people like Johnny Neighbor and all the designated athletes representing their nations. Seed continuing to grow in the infield. Remember, no official act of the closing has begun yet. This is all to provide an appropriate background here in Canada. Crowd picking up the throb of the tom-tom with applause. I'm sure that's what they hope for. They've come here literally from around the world. So many from the United States, of course. Having the Olympics on this continent has been something talked about all year. What a year this has been, hasn't it? With the Winter Olympics, with our own bicentennial and the tremendous events of 4th of July weekend, Summer Olympics, political convention, and election coming up. Lord Killannon coming down to perform his function now. He'll go first to the podium. Be escorted, according to the schedule, yes, by the chief of protocol, Charles de Robimière Harwood, chief of protocol of the organizing committee, or COJO, Comité Organisation Jeux Olympiques of Quebec, of Montreal. At the same time, or in a moment, we're going to have 3 young couples come out here representing Greece, where the first games were held in the ancient games, Canada, and the Soviet Union, the host for the next games. A little bow from the Indian chief for the Irish lord. It tells you something of the variety of people who are here. The announcement of Killannon, one-time journalist. He reported wars in the Far East. He was a movie producer, producing, among other things, The Quiet Man. Maybe you remember that picture some years ago with John Wayne. It was Barry Fitzgerald was in there. It was a great picture. Now he is stopped as scheduled at the foot of the rostrum, and there's one of the youngsters dressed in Greek costume. That's Jimmy Tsoutsoumis, 12 years old, in the Greek traditional Evzone costume worn by the mountain soldiers in the days of old in northern Greece, by the Royal Guard today. And the young girl is Mary Dimakov. They're both of Greek extraction and live in Montreal. They're about to raise the Greek flag for the Greek anthem. Then, as we said, there's another couple for Canada for that anthem, and a Russian pair of youngsters. But first, the Greek anthem. country where the games all began. By the way, today, the Prime Minister of Greece sent a message to the International Olympic Committee proposing that a permanent site for the Olympics be built in Greece, that facilities be put up at great expense, and that they always be held there. It's just a proposal, but it will be brought before the IOC. One of many ideas that are being proposed around the world for the continuance of the Olympics. Oh, Canada. Great roar from the home crowd. The national pride that has been growing and growing in this country in recent years was all summed up right there, I think. It still is. I hope the speaker on your television set, by the way, is doing justice to the glory of the arrangements of these these musical selections. Victor Vogel has done an incredible job. Now, the Soviet anthem for the next Olympics. Of the countries of the games that once were, the games that still are until the flame goes out, and the games that will be 4 years from now. The Russian youngsters there, by the way, were children of Soviet consulate officials in Montreal wearing Muscovite peasant costumes. Now Lord Killannon to declare the games closed. But remember, that's not the end of this at all. It's really just the beginning. Then we have the flag go out, the flame, and other things. President of the IOC closing his first summer games.
Au nom du Comité International Olympique.
He's saying two different things, one in French and one in English, but they're not the same statements. This one says, as I make it out, in the name of the International Olympic Committee, after having offered to Her Majesty the Queen and to the people of Canada, to the authorities of the City of Montreal, and to the organizing committee of the Olympics, of the Games, the homage of our profound gratitude, we proclaim the closing of the Olympic Games. We go here now, as he does it in English, it's a little bit different. It includes the next games in Moscow. What a roar. Picture of Kalinin on the huge screen. That's amazing. They seem to be offering a tribute to the president of the International Olympic Committee. I don't say that because he doesn't deserve it, but crowds just don't do that usually. They must think he did a pretty good job.
Et à tous les participants, officiels et spectateurs, l'hommage de notre profonde gratitude. Je proclame la clôture des Jeux du 21e
The last
Olympiade.
part of the statement I read to you
I declare
before.
the Games
Now,
of the 21st Olympiad closed, and in accordance with tradition, call upon the youth of all countries to assemble 4 years from now at Moscow, there to celebrate with us the Games of the 22nd Olympiad. May they display cheerfulness, unity, and sportsmanship, free from all discrimination, so that the Olympic torch will be carried on with courage and honor for the future.
so he has closed the games, but they're not over until the flame is extinguished. There it is. As the flame burns on, we're about to have the ceremonial lowering of the Olympic flag. Olympic flag, the flags on the pole will be the permanent possession of the organizers here. They can do with it whatever they want. Remember, there is another flag, a ceremonial flag that has passed from one city to the other, the so-called Antwerp flag that was brought here on opening day. That will be in the city hall for 4 years and will be passed from the mayor of Montreal in 1980 to the mayor of Moscow. Returning to the royal box, I believe that's Prime Minister Trudeau that just shook the Indian chief's hand there in the white coat. Yeah, on the left, your left of the first row, turning around now sitting down. And as royalty and the 75,000 citizens look on the Olympic hymn, listen to another glorious piece of music. arrangement of the Olympic hymn written by Spiro Samaro back in the last century and officially adopted by the IOC in 1957, sung by the Orpheus Choir, part of a Greek-Canadian Artistic Association from Toronto. These are Canadian athletes who will carry out the flag now. 4 women and 8 men. The women took down the flag and now join the men. They are a combination of athletes who didn't make the Canadian team. Rather a nice tribute to them for trying, and people who applied for but weren't accepted for the Torchbearers program. Girls in the rear there. As they pass the royal box, they'll raise the flag to shoulder height. Each person has his own feelings as it goes out. We're now going to hear some of the music of André Mathieu again. This is a selection he wrote when he was 18. It's called Mistacina, which is the Indian name for a lake in northern Quebec. There, the salute being fired outside the stadium by the 5th Light Artillery Battalion of the Canadian Forces under the command of Captain Pierre Boucher. Singing of this selection too by 3 groups of 50. The Petit Chanteurs de Montreal, 50 boys from the Disciples de Massenet, a mixed chorus named for the famous French composer, and 50 professional singers from Montreal. At this moment, I would think the Canadians here, the tens of thousands of them, would be making up their mind whether it was all worth it. The controversy, the delays, the $1.5 billion, the glorious competition they've seen, the political controversies. It's hard to add it all together with the pluses and the minuses and use it to explain the emotion that you feel right now, because you do feel emotion at this moment. Poised and ready now is one of North America's most famous jazz musicians, the famous trumpeter Maynard Ferguson, born and raised in Montreal. How could he have ever guessed that an honor like this would come to him in his hometown? He's going to play a trumpet solo for the Extinction of the Flame. If you don't follow jazz too closely, he's played with Tommy Dorsey and Stan Kenton, now with his own band and tours. Again, the music arranged by Victor Vogel. flame beginning to die. The games of the 21st Olympiad are over. The closing ceremonies are not. There's another big aspect. We're scheduled now to see live pictures by satellite from Moscow, the host city for the next Olympic Games in 1980.
Ladies and gentlemen.
First picture on the screen,
live
Moscow.
from Moscow.
That is coming from Moscow right now. And transmitted to the huge television screen here. You'll see in a moment as we show you the crowd, the TVs, to give you the background against which is all being played. There you have it. Now further pictures should begin. There is Lenin Stadium, where it will all happen. 103,000 seating capacity. There's Kalin Avenue. And there, the Bolshoi Theater, founded by Catherine II in 1773, where the cultural things will take place. The Kremlin itself, meaning fortress. The present walls constructed 1485 to 1495. Now, this is that same picture live. We're showing it to you as it's fed directly into our center rather than from the screen in the stadium, because you can see it in full color here. These are live pictures at dawn in Moscow tomorrow morning. Symbolically saying, welcome. Come see us in 1980. And now a chorus. That's the white birch tree, the symbol, national tree of the Soviet Union. Folk dance with the balalaika. My goodness, it won't be long until people will be preparing for the games of 1980. It may seem a long time to you, but for the people who have to get ready for them, from the organizers, yes, to the television people, it's a long, long job. Isn't that marvelous? It's still hard to get the idea of a satellite picture, beautiful color, coming from 10,000 miles away, 8 or 9 time zones. Well, it isn't coming too well right now. There it is again. There is the Kremlin, the Red Star atop the ancient fortress building. Walls constructed in 1495. There are 20 towers altogether. It's only been open to the public, interestingly, since 1955. And these are dancers in Moscow, in Red Square, at dawn, with the Olympic rings. Chimes, I believe, coming from the Kremlin clock. We've been there many times. We've heard that sound.
Welcome to Moscow.
Well, there's the symbol of the Moscow Games. First time I've seen that. The Red Star. And now conjoined with the symbol for the Montreal Games and a candle burning. At this point, I think we're going to have the lights go out here in the stadium, and the 75,000 people here light their own little candles. A new kind of a thing that you just bend and then shake, and it turns into a green glowing light. Not just yet. Now the girls in the circles are lighting theirs, and a few begin to appear in the stands, and more and more. There you see the people waving them, making me remember the night in Mexico City 8 years ago when the sound was the quiet rustling of souvenir sombreros in the night, waving goodbye to the athletes, saying au revoir. Cornelia Ender and John Neighbor and Nadia Comaneci, who may be watching this in her home in Romania now. Shirley Babashoff, all the great stars of track and field. Sherpinsky, the marathon winner. The American men who won the 4x100 and the 4x400 relays. We couldn't enumerate them all, but it's a symbolic farewell to the athletes of the world. Willie Davenport carrying out the American flag. Those satellite pictures, by the way, came from Moscow to Warsaw to Prague to Reistings, Germany, to Mill Village, New England, and to Montreal. Oh, it's a great site. It's working beautifully, isn't it? 75,000 people saying au revoir for 4 years to the Olympians. Theme of the music here, The Fire of Friendship. This music is the music that Mathieu wrote at age 8 again. The entire field now filled with the athletes, with the Indian chiefs and the other Indians, with the young high school girls. Tempo growing for the farewell to Montreal. Olympics have they been? They've been an Olympics of bitter controversy, of the farewell of some 30 nations who left when the games began, of the exclusion of another nation, the Republic of China. They've been an Olympics of incredibly exciting competition. They've been an Olympics, I think, where all the nations sent remarkably representative athletes. I know the people of the United States have been proud of their kids, of the boxers and wrestlers, of the track and field athletes, of the swimmers and the divers, of the big judo wrestler from New Jersey who won a bronze medal. All of them most representative. And if they disagree on the future of the Olympics, if they disagree on the way our own Olympic program is run, they all came. And whether they were happy they came for their own personal pride or for their country, the point is that they were glad they were there. Must be 4,000 or 5,000 people altogether on the field doing this snake dance before the athletes leave the stadium. And now several thousand more of the athletes are moving out onto the field as we figured they would. You can't hold them back forever. And they each have one of these little green candles too. They're just around the blue teepee there coming out. Joining the Indians. It is not necessary to put the wagons in a circle. These are friendly people. We were considering putting our mobile units in a circle around the camera, but we got the pictures. All right. And if the security people were a bit overzealous in expelling our camera, and if they were a little slow to get the absurd streaker who came out here on the field, I think we must say in fairness that within minutes of this stadium being cleared now, they have done the big job. The kind of thing that none of us talked about has not occurred here. There's an Olympian picture. Catch on like this, and it really is. This is all unscheduled and informal now. That is the most unlikely looking Indian that just went by. I think it was a Russian in their white suit. Beautiful shot from the overhead camera on the crane. Music of Mathieu swelling and swelling. They be held always in Greece. It has an appeal, and yet the worldwide nature, remembering games in Rome, and with its ancient buildings and the Colosseum as a background, and the Baths of Caracalla where they held the wrestling events, remembering the Far Eastern sites of Tokyo, and then Little Mexico. Everybody said they couldn't put on the games, and in the end they did a fine job. Remembering Munich. Except one day. And now seeing the Indians, Quebec. It would be a shame, I think, not to move it around the world. First time in Eastern Europe, 4 years from now in Moscow. Perhaps one day they'll also be in Africa, the nations that felt they had to go home this time. You think that little kid with the American flag by the rail is going to remember this for a while? Many of the athletes are now beginning to exit from the stadium. Exiting through the marathon gate. There's John Neighbor right in the center of your picture. He's taken off his beanie, finally, and is putting on an Indian headdress. Really taking part of the ceremonies in the spirit which is intended. Shirley Babashoff, I think, trying to figure out how to put her headdress on. They were given to the athletes by the Indians. She needs a little help. Well, she may make it. Pretend it's a bathing cap, Shirley. There you go. It's difficult to think that this stadium, which has been filled with 70 to 75,000 people for all these long days and weeks, in an hour, going to be empty and totally silent. As far as I know, the next thing that will happen here will be a Canadian football game. The Montreal Alouettes running out on the field. And next spring, the Montreal Expos with a new home. The three cultures of Canada really represented on the field there: French and English and Indian. Could have choreographed this. Isn't it just beautiful? The best part is always the part that wasn't scheduled. Is that an Olympic flag? Or the official Olympic flag's already gone out? Fraternity, friendship among the youth of the world. There's been a lot of abuse of the Olympics in the press in the last couple of weeks. The New York Times called for an end to them. At this moment, I can hardly think that's the right idea. It's kind of like saying that civilization isn't worth saving because there are wars. Said the object was not to win, but to take part. There it is. Lord, the Olympics can't change the world, but certainly every 4 years, these tens of thousands of athletes have to go home and communicate something. And maybe these pictures can too. Maybe it's possible. Been done once again. The Olympics have taken place in Canada. I think that's their own Olympic flag from what I can see of it. You can see as well as I can. Yeah, that's what it is. Now there are little informal groups still dancing even though the music has stopped. They're now saying, "Adieu, Montreal, à bientôt, Moscow." See you in Moscow, they're saying, at 10 o'clock of a summer evening in Montreal.
In Moscow.
And the night sky overhead is clear. The temperature just as comfortable as it could be. I've tried to sum up these games a little bit here tonight, and certainly we'll try to do our best. True Knowledge controlling all the pictures in the studio, and whatever whatever I've said to give a well-balanced picture of these games. As I said, with the excitement, with the warmth and humor, with the controversy, with the cheap shots, with everything that happened. That was a Brazilian flag, and ooh, I hope I don't get lettered, but I still don't know whether that's Australia or New Zealand. I apologize. I am told it's New Zealand. Let it be on the head of those who have told me so. No, it is. And now in English, the scoreboard is saying, farewell, Montreal, till we meet in Moscow, as we saw in French before.
Of the contest held by the organizing committee.
Sounds like we're going to have the winner of a song contest. I don't know about this, but that's the story.
Which also reached the final, composed by
The Olympic Games over now.
It is now sung by
Shirley Babishoff in the center still. A lot more coming up on our program, by the way. It's not anywhere near over. Those of you who saw our closing in Innsbruck and remember some of the special things our people put together for you, you're going to see very similar things. You'll be seeing the credits, as you rightly should, for all of our people.